Alright, let's continue and look at the Nurbs surfaces very shortly. Actually, we're just mostly focusing on poly modeling and box modeling, and Nurbs and surfaces. So there's a different way of modeling, and they're more focused on calculated surfaces. And I will show you what things you can easily make with them. And we're already in the tab surfaces here, and we also have a tab surfaces here. And the top ones are very handy to make something like a cup, or also extrude a long path, or making a boat very easily. So let's look at these tools. And but you can also extrude as a polygon, as you can see here in the options. For example, with the loft. This is the loft, and there you can see what it can do and how it can change. So let's see. Let's just go from top to bottom. Let's go first to loft, then planar, and revolve, and then we go to extrude. And that's the ones we are going to look at. So let's do a loft first. So in this case, you need a path. So let's make this path. Let's just duplicate this path with Ctrl D, duplicate it again, Ctrl D, and then this could be, I don't know, your boat or a wave or something like that. So we can select this, and then this one, and then that one. And this will make a patch from this to that to that. So let's go into surfaces and do loft. So that's what it did. And we can still change the curves. So for example, I want to change this curve to more up and down, for example. That's very easy to change. I can still go into the vertices and change a vertex if I want to, if it needs to look different. And yeah, so that's very nice, right? But this won't go to Unity. That's the problem. So there are two ways to get this to Unity. So if I have this model, I can convert this if I've made it to polygons. And I can do that at modify and then convert, and I can say Nurbs to polygons or to subdivisions. And when you go to the options bar, you can say, okay, it's a general fit, or it's general, or it's quad. I like quads, not triangles, or it's count based. You can check these out. For example, if I do this, this looks pretty good actually. But if I would do general fit, yeah, this is a simple model, but here it's already an error. See that? This becomes an n-gon. You don't want that. So it's sometimes hard. This is an easy case to convert it, but sometimes really hard to convert. But it seems to be doing a great job at the moment. But you could also have that you, if I delete this, loft it directly towards a polygon. As we saw before, we go to the surfaces, then go to loft, and within loft I can go to the options. And within the options, I can say, okay, let's go directly to polygon. Let's say quads. Let's say I want this count. It worked for me. It said it's on 200 count. Maybe I can do with less polygons. But let's go for that first and see, okay, what does that do? Okay, directly in polygons, directly looking nice. And from here, I can go to face again and go to modeling, and then I can extrude again. So it's very handy. All right, so if we go to the surfaces now, and maybe go to look at the next one, is planar. And planar is if you have a surface which is connected to each other, like this circle. We can fill this circle up. So let's go to the planar and say planar. And now, okay, it's probably on the other side drawn. Yeah, it is. And so you can fill it up. That's what planar does. So sometimes you have from Illustrator, you have an Illustrator file with just the lines, and you can fill up the lines, the line work. So that's very handy. All right, okay, that's that. Then we have also, let's see, in surfaces, revolve. So, and revolve, we can have a look. We can say like, okay, let's go to a side view, and we can create a curve first. And we can even snap it to the grid if we want, right? So before we did snapping, with X I'm snapping, but this grid is not really small enough. We could change that, but let's just go without snapping and say like, okay, let's make this like that, and see what does this do. So you can maybe already guess what this will be, or more or less what this will be. So if I just hit object mode, go back to my perspective view and hit revolve, so it will revolve around the curve I just made. If I go to 4, I can still see there's the curve here. It's hard to select, so it's easier to select in Outliner. And I can still change this curve, right? So if I don't like what I see, it's like a vase more or less, right? So if I don't like what I see, I can change that. So even with arrows, I can go up and down. So I want to have more something like that. Or you want to make maybe like glass, or more like this. So it's easy to make something like that with Nurbs, right? And you can also change this again, because this is, if you go and hit right mouse button, this is again a surface. So I cannot go extrude. This is a hull and so forth, and the surface points and isoparms. So we want to have this as a polygon again. So the same way it goes, like you can do that again in the options and say, okay, it needs to be directly a polygon. Or you can do that and modify angle vert and go to, okay, make it a polygon. And now let's try the count again. Let's see what that does. It does a very decent job. So the counts is really looking good. It's not always the case. So now I have 2 of these things. And in here I can say, oh, this is my new base, and extrude from there again. Alright, so let's look at extrude. It's a bit the same as we saw before. So let's delete this now. So you have, you need a circle. This is going to be our diameter of what we're going to extrude. So we have a curve. So curve, this is the curve. Enter. And we select, I think the circle first and then the curve. I always forget. So let's try this and go to surfaces and say extrude. Here we go. We need to maybe change a little bit more that it is along this path. So we can go here into the options in the attribute editor, and then we can say, okay, it's a tube now. It's nice. Okay, let's keep it a tube. And let's go and say component pivot or center. No, it doesn't really change. I'll try this and fix path, that it goes on a path. We go in this one or the closest one. Yeah, this looks a bit better. Maybe this angle is too much. So we can go to this and change the angle a little bit. So the tube is not as squeezy as it is now. So yeah, with that. And now we have this tube. And we can change the diameter of the tube as well. So I can change just the scale. So I can change up the scale. So yeah, not too big because then it will go over itself. But like that. And yeah, so as we saw, we can also change this. So yeah, so this is how easy you can make something like this. And this, of course, is also nice to have this again as a polygon later on. All right. So we just saw loft, planar, revolve, and extrude. And if you want to dive in more into Nurbs surfaces, I invite you to do and look up tutorials online. All right. Moving on.